off. Tease me, baby, and turn me on. You give me something I can think about to live for. Oh, summer breeze.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Gebremeskel. I'm a member of the Dallas community here. We're going to begin the Business Opportunities and Challenges workshop now. I'd like to call up to the stage our esteemed panelists, Abraha, Weldegebriel. Abraha is one of the pioneer Tigrayan entrepreneurs who has managed his own accounting and tax services company in the state of Colorado. He has owned and successfully managed his own retail business for more than 2 decades. He is a prominent community member and assumed various board and advisory positions at different times. His combined experience as a retail business owner and accounting and tax services gives him a unique position and opportunity to serve and consult his community members in business idea development, business establishment, and business growth. He is a board member at Gebrehiwot Investment Group, a multi-million corporation owned by Tegaru entrepreneurs. Abraha has a degree in business administration from the University of Colorado and an MBA from Regis University. Welcome, Abraha. I'd like to next introduce Dr. Girmay Gebrehiwot. Girmay is a highly gifted and talented entrepreneur with proven skill of business development and various business endeavors. He has established and executed several for-profit and non-profit entities. He has worked at the UN International Organization for Immigration, Vice Chair of African Chamber of Commerce in Colorado, Chairman of Northbridge Connect, Managing Broker of ICC Real Estate, and Executive Director of African Diaspora Hope and African Global Foundation. Girmay is a specialist in international relations, tourism, and managerial organization. Welcome, Girmay. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Sisay Teklu and call him to the stage. Sisay is an expert in leadership, finance, entrepreneurship, and marketing with proven work experience both in Africa and the USA. He has ample experience of leadership and execution in for-profit and non-profit organizations. Sisay is CEO at AEE Business Consulting and facilitates business loans in the US and Canada. He is an advisory board member of the Tigray Global Chamber of Commerce. He is a board member at Gebrehiwot Investment Group, a multi-million corporation owned by Tegaru entrepreneurs. Sisay has a BA degree in business management and a master's in economics from the University of Wales, UK. Welcome, Sisay. You might be wondering why I'm up here, so I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Mike Gebremeskel. I am a member of the community here in Dallas. I'm the COO and co-founder of Talisman, a B2B software platform that helps businesses automate IT with the click of a button. So I'd like to walk you through our brief agenda of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to have opening statements from each of our different guests. They're going to be talking about 3 different subjects. First, we're going to have Abraha talk about the opportunities and challenges in business startups. He'll speak about that as part of his opening statement. We'll then pass it to Brother Sisay to cover immigrants and business finance. And then we'll have Dr. Girmay talk about the types of businesses owned by Tegaru and why. And then we'll move into the moderated questions before moving into a Q&A with the rest of the audience. So I'd like to go ahead and pass it to Abraham to speak on opportunities and challenges in business startups.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you for the sweet introduction. How are you guys doing? Good afternoon. It was our intention and interest to see a full audience, but it takes very little people to start, or few people in number to start a business. So it's okay to have interested people in doing something, in bettering ourselves. So my main point to give as a discussion point is, as Tegaru, what do we do to better ourselves? We are trying to build communities. We are trying, to help our Tigray. We are doing so many things, but how strong are we in bettering ourselves, in having a steady, consistent, and a better income that is more than the payroll that we could get? So usually, lack of information and where to start a business is a challenge we have. Most people want to do something, but they don't know where to start. That's the challenge we have. What kind of businesses are out there? What can I do? With the amount of money I have, with the little money I have, can I start somewhere? Or how can I join with some peer or friends by putting my money with my friends? What kind of business or what kind of entity can I create to do business together? So when we talk about opportunities, there are so many than getting the paycheck. There are so many business, 15, 20, 30 kinds of businesses. If you maybe ask other states, there is a lot of opportunity in health sector, medical transportation. There are a lot of opportunities in real estate, a lot of opportunities in the retail industry, a lot of opportunities in transportation. It's limitless. But where do you start? What do you do? All I am talking by connecting a company that is created in Denver by a group of Tegaru from all over the United States and even overseas. It is 65 of us, about 65 or 67 of us, to raise about $3.6 million. So that company is called GIZ. GIZ is created by Tegaru to empower in economy to our people. Economic power is the power better for all our enemies, to make them calm and, to tell them that they cannot beat as they dream. That will happen only if we have a strong economy in every household of Tegaru. So with that dream in mind, we have about 3.6 million sitting in Denver, which is, there are a lot of, like North Bridge, others have been started. Atlanta, they have some group of people that establishes some real estate business. These are really, really good start. But the Denver one looks more money than any time that Tegaru have started. The only problem is the time was against us. When I say that, you know how the interest rate is now? The interest rate is too high. It's not good for buyers. So if you buy a real estate, if it is 8-9% interest, what you take to your pocket, the investors, we cannot maximize their profit. So we have to be careful. We are managing, we are watching. So in every state, Dallas, Atlanta, Denver, Tegaru, what we have to do is, let's come together, a group of 4, a group of 8, a group of 10. Let's create LLCs. What are these LLCs? The LLCs are if four people can buy one house. Imagine one house, So many young, our kids, they are earning high. But do they buy anything? Did you see them? Four friends from our young children, if they put 10,000, 5,000 each, they can manage in 1 or 2 years to buy one house. Then that will be rented. The next 2 or after 2, 3 years, they can manage to buy another one. That's how it starts. So we have to encourage them to do this. To encourage them to do this, they have to establish, 4 of them, they have to establish an LLC. That LLC can be a partnership. They have to try to work with the tax people on the tax side of it. So they have to know, you create an LLC, that means you have to Colorado, to whatever, Dallas Secretary of State, you register your business. That's number 1. You start with Secretary of State to establish the LLC with the name. Then you have to take that name, then register with the IRS to get your taxpayer identification number. After you do this, you buy that land, you buy that property, or you open that retail business with this process. If you are buying an existing business, then there is a loan. You have to come up with 20 to 30% to buy that existing business. And instead of your credit, it is more credit of the business that you are buying that allows you to purchase. So in this case, there is an SBA loan that is available to support small scale and communities. And always if you come up with 30%, say if you buy a 1.5 million retail business, you have to come up with 15 times 3, 30% of that as a down payment. If one person cannot do it, 2 people can do it. They can share the work, and also they will have that business for a certain time. They will have another one, then they operate, 2 different businesses by sharing together the duties. So with this thinking, we are able to help Tegaru that want to start a business. Look in your areas. If in Denver, the biggest communities are the Korean community, maybe one of our speakers will explain. That's the strongest community, is multi-billion community. They own a bank. They are the ones that are giving all these loans working with SBA. So there are a lot of opportunities out there, but we are not tapping into them. The other thing, if we know where to start, what that startup company would look like, and then where to get a loan, we can help you on the whole process, how you can get there. With GIZ, only 4 or 5 the same-minded people start talking. 4 or 5 of us start talking. Then what happened? Okay, let's establish this business. We agree on the name for registration purposes. Then we each of us invite 5, 6 people. Then in a library in Denver, about 30 people gather together. We told them our vision, what we can do, and the minimum money you can get in was $50,000 a person. But $50,000 may look high. Because it looks high, what we did is, okay, we don't want to manage 500 people, that's why we make it 50. But if you have $5,000 or you have $1,000, create an LLC to come up with that 50. So 5 of you, 10 of you can come up with that $50,000. Then you join as investor, as a founder to GIZ, by the name of that group's LLC that was registered in their name. So that 50 is not to reject or hindrance for entrance. It is a way to manage people. So they can create an LLC and they can join the group. Then I'm telling you the process of starting up the business. Then with that money, we call people, we gather together, they agree with the 50,000. Then the next step was we went to the legal team, we hire lawyers, and when we hire lawyers, they write our bylaws and the policies. Then we go back to the members, they approve the bylaw, then they elect board members, the 4 or 5 of us, the first initiators, then we handed that to the board, the elected board members. So this is the way how we start a business. So this business with 3.6 million, what can you do? Our dream, say in Atlanta, I went today to you seen that just a restaurant? That's a shopping center, right? With a $3.6 million plus some loan, a shopping center like that in Denver may be about 8 million. So if we buy that one, if we manage to buy a center like that in Atlanta, a center like that in Dallas, a center like that in Denver by investors, the dream that Wa'ala is dreaming to create a little Tigray will be established right there. That is the Tigrayan center. The hair salon, the nail, the small shopping centers, all will be there. That is how to create that little Tigray. We make the money, at the same time also we own that business, and then the name of Tigray will be up high. So these are the dreams that we are dreaming in every area, in every place that we have to help. So for any startup, I cannot going, talking on and on. So the startup businesses, we can talk about the business entities, the business entities, the registration process, the loan process. With all this, any person that is interested in creating LLC and getting into business, we are available to help with all this. So you can have our phone, you can ask even the TPN. I saw the TPN leaders, most of them are our children, we know them. So you can get us through them, or you can directly contact us, and then we can walk you through. We can help you, and you help us because your riches are our riches. If we all change, if we all have that economic power, nobody will dare to touch Tegaru. So that's our main dream. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abraha, for that opening statement and the wisdom there. We're definitely going to open it up for questions at the end. So if you're curious as to how to start an LLC or anything like that and any specifics, please keep those questions down and we'll address those at the end. But I'd like to move on next to Sisay to discuss business finances and immigration. So please go for it, Brother Sisay.
Okay, thank you. So my portion is going to be about the role and contribution of immigrant-owned businesses. So allow me first to give you some keynotes that in the U.S., the immigrant community constitutes 13.6%. So out of the total population in the U.S., immigrants are 13.6%, but their representation in the business is 21.7%. So it is highly probable that an immigrant in the U.S. can start and own business because the percentage is 13%, while the actual business ownership is 21.7%. Again, number of immigrant entrepreneurs in the US is 3.2 million. It is 3.2 million. And they employ 8 million Americans. So sometimes there is a misunderstanding that immigrants are dependent on the American economy. No, it is actually vice versa. Our percentage is higher, and immigrants actually employ in the US 8 million Americans. The amount of total revenue generated by immigrants in the US in 2017 was $1.3 trillion. We need to know our contribution to this country. What we always think about immigrants is we are dependent on this or that social services. No, it's not across the board, at least. The contribution of immigrants to the US economy is huge, and I am saying this, $1.3 trillion annually. Not only that, the rate of survival of immigrant-owned business in the US is 50%. By the way, rate of survival and growth of business is not easy. So 50% is huge. Let me also share this with you. Among the Fortune 500 companies, among the Fortune 500 companies, 44.2% was either started by immigrant or a son of immigrant, meaning first generation immigrants. Now so this is a general picture of immigrants in the US. What about the immigrants, particularly Ethiopian immigrants? That, by the way, in general, 10% of Ethiopian immigrants are Tegaru. That is the statistics that is showing. Again, our percentage in Ethiopian population is 6%, but in the US, our proportion, Tegaru immigrants among Ethiopians is 10%. And Ethiopians or Tegaru started to immigrate to the US as a result of 3 regulations. 1, 1965 Immigration Act. 2, Refugee Act of 1980. And 3, Diversity Visa Lottery. It is actually in the year 2000 and around where the inflow of immigrants increased into the US. In terms of income, the median annual income of Ethiopians, where Tegaru is included, is $36,000, while the average American is $50,000. So you can see the disproportionate. But a very important piece, 11% of these immigrants have an annual income of $90,000 and above. This is the engineers, the IT professionals, the physicians, and so on and so on. When it comes to how Tegaru finance their business, first and foremost, it should come from a personal saving. A personal saving is the first one. Second is support from family and friends. Third, the traditional rotating credit saving association, what we call UQUB, government assistance, and then loans coming from SBA and other banks. If you or I wanted to establish a business, I have to bring or mobilize the necessary capital from those different sources. Sometimes your own saving, sometimes your own refinance of your own residential house, sometimes support from family and friends, 401k, government assistance. I'm sure you know what I know, that lots of Tegaru were a beneficiary of this COVID assistance. And I have seen, by the way, some of our friends falling into a problem because of their access to grant or to, of course, subsidized loan. If you don't have any business idea, it's better not to have this money. There are few among us who have access for this subsidized loan without having a business plan. The most important, though, navigating the financial sector is very, very important if you want to own business. Particularly take our cultural and linguistic limitations. I was a lender at an organization. I am still a lender. And I see immigrants from wherever they are. The limitations, the cultural limitation, lack of confidence to talk with a banker, with a lender, lack of cultural capability or cultural limitations to talk with a banker. That's why you see in a number of organizations now immigrants to serve other immigrants. Particularly at last, please, if you want to own business, please don't mess up your tax return. Don't mess up your credit score or credit history. Don't mess up or properly manage your bank accounts. You cannot own business in the US without having the right information about your tax return, about your credit score and credit history, 700 and above, and a proven and transparent track record of your bank accounts. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Sisay. We're going to now have the last opening statement from Dr. Girmay on the nature of Tegaru-owned businesses, as well as the hurdles to business growth strategies. Dr. Girmay.
Michael, and welcome everybody. I would like to say Akwaba, which is welcome. I'm very happy now to be here with Dallas friends and Dallas 2023 Wa'ala. It is very fantastic to be here, and then I'm very honored and to speak about my presentation. Well, my portion is, to talk how Tegaru can organize themselves, and then the strategies, how to proceed to a civilized society. Today we are here, to talk about how to bring economic empowerment to Tegaru, how to reduce income inequalities, and then after that, how we can create a civilized society. I'm glad, TPN is here. They are a bridge, and then we have to create, a bridge to them, how to create a civilized society. Today, I'm going to talk, what do we need to do as Tegaru to create that civilized society? I know that there are many businesses all over the United States owned by Tegaru. Some of them, they are organized, some of them, they are not. We need a direction. Some of them, they are confused, some of them, they are organized. So we are here today to share our information, our experience. For example, Tegaru, I'm going to take, a sample, Colorado and Texas. Tegaru businesses are related into transportation, like truck, taxi, Uber, school transportation, medical transportation, and others. Some of them, they are involved in liquor store, grocery, and retail, restaurants, healthcare, business, and real estate. When I take, Colorado as a sample, Colorado businesses in Tegaru own about 50 Tegaru own a liquor store. About 30 people, they own 7-Eleven. And we have like 2 retail shops, 2 coffee shops, 3 restaurants, and 1 hair salon. In Colorado, there are about 60,000 Tegarus. Is this number sufficient? I don't think so. We can work, more if we are more organized. And if we know the ways, the benefits, of a startup. Mr. Abraha earlier, he was talking about, how to find startups, There are some states which they give, a startup benefits, a startup grant, like Colorado, the Office of Economic Development and International Department gives, money for startups, but you have to approach them. You have to go to their office, and then you have to fill, their forms and requirements. And we need, I would like to advise or recommend, every Tegaru in every state to find those startup grants. Also, there are some benefits and grants, for existing businesses. Like this in Colorado, there are, there is an office which gives, grants and benefits, to those already existing businesses. So we have to find them. The other thing I would like to talk is, Texas also, because we are in Texas, I would like to mention a little bit about Texas. Texas has, the largest black population in the US. About 4 million or 14% of blacks, they live in Texas. There are also many opportunities in Texas. And then we have to use them. And then we have to find them also, where, let's say, for example, where do we find those benefits? Which offices are? In order to do that, we have to organize ourselves. Tegaru, as it was mentioned earlier, we are in different capacities and sectors. I would like, please allow me to mention some of Tegaru businesses in the US. One is Northbridge Connect, which was formed by North America Tegaru Forum. To this connection, I would like to correct one thing. During the introduction, Mr. Mike said, I am the chairperson of Northbridge Connect. I used to be, I'm former chairperson, but right now I'm a board member. So Northbridge Connect is one of them, capital of 1.2 million. The other one is Giz Investment Group, which is headquartered in Denver with 3.6 million. There is another group which is Club 10K. There is one in Bay Area, Kummel Investment Group in San Francisco area. Another one is in Charlotte, Tegaru Business Group. The other one, the old and the biggest one, is Atlanta Tegaru Business Group. So these are, what I know so far. But we have to bring, more business groups if we want to bring, economic empowerment to our society. Next is Tegaru. They have to work, with other African friends. My suggestion is, it's good to work, to organize as Tegaru. At the same time, it might be helpful, to organize with other brothers and sisters, Africans. I know there is one group of Tegaru which is associated with Africans. It is called Salam Club and Real Estate Group. It was formed by Tegaru and Eritreans. So we need, to approach other African brothers and sisters to establish business groups. It should be in a proper way. It should be in a legal way. But we may need to approach them, to work with them. If there is any advantage to work with, I think we need to work, with African friends and brothers and sisters. At the end, what I want to say is, what do we need to do as Tegaru? We need, to increase retail business. We need to establish a state-based chamber of commerce in every state, which might help us. And as I mentioned earlier, we need to work, with Africans. We need to establish, more Tegaru organizations. Marketing strategy is very important. Workshops, trainings, conferences, they are very essential. They are like a GPS. Without GPS, it might be very hard to drive. At the same thing, without workshops, trainings, and conferences, I think it would be very hard, to establish businesses. At the same time, it is not only establishing businesses. We have to be also winners. I would like to remember Sister Mevrat, one time, I think was last year, she organized, a conference in Atlanta. It was the first one. It was very helpful, for Tegaru who participated. So we need, more conferences like that. The other thing is, we need to organize associations in every sector. Like, for example, in Colorado, we have about 50 liquor stores. Somebody can correct me if I am wrong. I don't think they have a Tegaru Liquor Store Business Association. They might have Ethiopian or Eritrean association, I know, but I don't think Tegaru, they have a business association. We need to organize ourselves because it will help us, to get information, to share our experience, and to meet, those business-related authorities. Like getting grants, funds, if we are not organized, we will not get them. There are deadlines. For example, in Colorado last week, there were 2 grants for health purposes, for public health. Those who get the information, they fill out. The deadline was Thursday and Friday. Those they didn't have the information, they couldn't. So every state has, grants and funds for non-profit and for-profit organizations. We have to find them. This can be possible if we are organized. So we need, an organization in every sector. We need to share information. As I said, share about the startups, existing businesses. And we need to increase, our network. It can be with Tegaru, it can be with Africans. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, we need to organize as Tegaru. Koreans, for example, in Colorado, they do business, with Tegaru businesses. If we are able to organize as a Tegaru, it can be IT people. We were to get, the money the Koreans are taking from Tegaru. So we have to try and serve our Tegaru businesses. Don't give, your money to others. But you have to be ready to take, those money. You have to give, services. So, I would like to mention here, we have to organize ourselves. We have to have like IT association. We have to have, real estate association. TPN, I'm very grateful for their services. I recommend, if they can organize as a business entity also. Organization helps a lot. We can organize as TPN. We can organize, as real estate professionals. We can organize, as IT professionals. We can organize, as restaurant owners, coffee shops. If we organize ourselves, I think we can compete with Starbucks. Last month I was in Washington, D.C., and then I saw one big, very magnificent coffee shop in Washington, D.C., in Maryland. It is owned by a Tigrayan. It's called Black Lion Coffee. If you go inside, Starbucks is nothing. So we need to have, a franchise like that. We can create. Everything is possible. But we need to be ready. We need to organize ourselves, and then we have to share information. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Girmay. With respect to the schedule, we have about 35 minutes left, so I want to be mindful of time and any questions that we have in the audience. I just want to make just a brief comment on, what you've all shared so far. So, a lot of this information would have been helpful 3 years ago when I started a business because we didn't have any of this. So first off, thank you for that. I'm going to ask each one of you a question before opening it up to the audience. My first question is for you, Abraha. When it comes to, forming this LLC amongst individuals, how do you set that up with the managing directors? For an LLC, you have to have specific appointed officers. How have you handled that in the past so that everyone has, kind of an equal say, depending on the investment that they give? How do you handle that?
Okay. When we create entities, the entities are either LLCs or C Corp. So those of you who attended business school may know the details, but the LLC in it can have a partnership, or it can be a disgruntled LLC. Means if I create an LLC and if I am the only member, then that is almost like for protection purposes, it has the name LLC, but it is me and that LLC are one and the same. So when I file my taxes, it will be Schedule C plus the 1040. So that's it. The other one, then you can elect that LLC also. If you want it to be a pass-through, then you will create an S corporation. That S corporation has a tax benefit. It is a pass-through. Especially those of you, say, you're driving Uber. You set an LLC to deal with Uber. That LLC, you can change it to an S corporation by filing a form 2553. So you elect as an S corporation. One bad thing about S corporation, for those of you who don't want to pay salary, it has a little issue because when you create an S, you have to pay salary for yourself. But let me tell you one big good thing on the S corporation side. Those of you who has children, you may do, say, in a driving, after all the expenses, if you net 40,000 a year, and if you have 3 kids, the 3 kids have some tax incentive from the government when your income falls somewhere. If you pay a salary to yourself, even though the company also matches and pays, but for the tax benefit in earned income credit, the salary, when it is a W-2, it is better for you. It is better for you. You can get a better return. So we advise that to the newcomers, when their earning is limited. The other thing is on LLC, when you create it, you have to go to Colorado or state, wherever your state is, register the name. Say if you want, okay, if your LLC name is Dallas-Fort Worth LLC, you create that name, you register with the Secretary of State, you own that name, then you have EIN with that name associated. Then when you file taxes or when you contract a work, when you fill W-9, also you use that for, instead of giving your social security number. So you deal with the business. Usually, if it is one member, it is simple. You don't have to see a lawyer. But when you are two, in business, you always have to think there is always dispute. During dispute, how do you solve the dispute? Two people may buy a retail shop. These two people that have a retail shop, when they may dispute at some point in time, then how do they exit? They don't have to fight each other. They should have to put everything in writing in the operating agreement. On that operating agreement, you need the legal people. Lawyers will give you that agreement instead of going to court. I don't advise people when they fight to go to court, because the lawyers take all the money. At the end of the day, you come to an agreement. So always put it in detail, how you can exit, who can take priority to, if Sisay and I have a business, if we don't agree, if we have to market, either he will give me the opportunity to take over, or I will give him the opportunity to take over. This has to be stated on agreements. The other thing, Tegaru, am I addressing your... the other thing, there is one thing that always bothers me as a Tigray. We don't trust each other. Did you know this? We don't trust. We always have questions. We always say, we have that issue as Tegaru. That's why we're not even, doing better. Anything, if you give $500 or more, put it in writing. Then we don't have to fight. Put it in writing. Put it in operation agreement, in a clear term. Then we prosper together. We can put the funds together. So, always, this trust issue is mind-boggling. Then we have to overcome that. Because I cannot do better by myself. That means if I have one franchise store, is that business? So I have one 7-Eleven franchise. It's a job. I paid money for 7-Eleven to buy a job. That's not business. If I have 5 for the franchises, then it becomes a business. So I don't want to buy a job. I just want to buy a business. If I have 4 or 5 different stores, if I can earn 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 from different one, without me standing 16 hours, that's business. If I have to stand 16 hours in there, then I am just buying a job, and that's not business. So we have to think why we need to come together, put our funds together to buy a better one that has a better income. So these are what we are saying. Let's put our funds together. Let's develop trust on each other. We are in a place where there is the rule of law. I don't know anybody that was ripped off doing business with somebody while living in America. I know there was mistrust when do business back home. Then somebody will go there to no return. Then they take advantage of some of us. That may happen. But here in the US, I don't think so that will happen, because there is a rule of law and we have to put it in writing. The other thing, since our moderator is on the IT side, and I heard him talking about IT, if you think of Tegaru IT professionals, especially in Dallas, I know more than 8 kids that are MIT graduates from Maala University, the best and the bright ones here. Their earning potential is high. If you ask them, they may have some legal issues because they come through school, all that. But if you ask them, if they own a house, if they own something, no. Don't think you may go back home tomorrow. When you go, you can sell your house and take the money with you. But do something. If you are an IT professional, when your age hits 45, your marketability is low because the 20-year-old guy will come. Then it is time to start thinking a business venture. Well, I am to my mid-30s now. Okay, I have 10 years. I have to do a transition. You have to do that. In Denver, Girmay said there are about 50 liquor stores. I deal with I have about 60 accountants on my business that I do accounting. When I see their statements, I see what they pay for IT support and maintenance. There are two Egyptian brothers that they control a software development with some vendor. They charge each store $79 a month for doing nothing. The software, or they may have issue once in a while, in 6 months, in a year. But they have a constant income of $79, not per store. If I have 3 registers, it is $79 per register. But I have intelligent kids here, but they are not getting into it. They are not asking information, so they can take over this. That's one thing I observe, because every time I see things, oh, so and so can do this, but they are not together. The other thing is the ATM machines you see, the software support you see, and even in my office, I pay for the Koreans $200 a month. To do what? To keep my network and to do some routine maintenance once in 6 months. But I know I have Tegaru that can do this, but they don't have that business. They are not organized, they are not associated together or create a business to help. So these are the opportunities that we have to discuss with them and tell them there is plenty of things they can help. It's helping us too, not to help themselves only. You know, I can communicate better with my accounting, with my Tegaru. Then if I have a good IT person Tigray, that's in life-saving. These are the things we have to think and work together to change. So even in the investment side, trust, and then it's a trust but verify, right? And also it has to be in writing. Then you will be protected. On the money we have, the board is scared, more scared than the investors of their 50,000. Because, do you know, when you register, when you give a share owner certificate, that burden falls on the board of directors. They are responsible. The lawyers are telling us, you have to be careful. You can't be sued for this. This is somebody's money. So when you get close and look into things, you as investor, you are protected. Maybe don't let your money go to Ethiopia if they tell you they are building an apartment. At that time, I will be scared. To do it here, I think you are. I'm not discouraging going back home but that's the reality. Some people take advantage of. Okay.
Thank you, Abraha. So we have about 20 minutes left. So we have one more question that I'll ask. You mentioned trust. So thank you for mentioning that, because I think when you start a business, it's very important to have that rooted, have a very clear agreement. But I think the other thing I want to touch on is something, Sisay, that you discussed. And like I said, we only have a few minutes for this question, but oftentimes when we're growing up, we're told to be, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but we're told to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, very safe corporate jobs that pay well, that don't take risks. I know when I started my business, at first, people around me just thought like, oh, you're just playing around, you're doing something, I don't know. And then last year I told my mom, I'm going to quit my job. And she was like, are you sure? She's like, it's very safe, you're getting money, you got a 401k, you want to quit that? So my question for you, Sisay, is how do we transition the mentality of being scarce, like having that scarcity mindset of, I want a safe job, that will pay me well, that isn't going to leave, to taking the risk to start a business so that you can own and create your own future? Because oftentimes, with these jobs in corporate America, without the right, you have to go search for the sponsorship, but without that, path, you can't, often have 100% control of your full destiny. So how do we change that mindset so that people are willing to take these risks? Because I think that is a roadblock that we have in our community today.
You are asking me a very difficult question. I will try to answer though. So, many of us, or many of the business people that we see, their background is diverse. There are business people that you see them running business because of their family background. They happen to be son or daughter of entrepreneurs, then they continue as their parents. There are some whose entrepreneurship is related from their previous work experience. An engineer who works for an organization decided to establish his or her own business other than working as an employee. Same is also with a physician or an IT specialist, and so on and so on. Now, what is that process? Honestly, that process is risky, if you like. I'm not going to lie this. You have to decide to take a risk, but we call it calculated risk. Hey, husband and wife, we are now employees. Yes, okay. Shall I start a business and you stay guaranteeing our family insurance? There is always a delicate balance. By the way, entrepreneurs in any country are less than 5% of that country's population. Why? Because there is always risk inherited. And who decided to take that risk is what makes an individual to be an entrepreneur and successful entrepreneur, because there is again a probability of failure. You decide to establish a business aspiring a better income, a better lifestyle. But it might be vice versa. It might not be the case. In fact, at times, you might have to return back after 2-3 years trial to establish and run a business. That is why, again, entrepreneurship is only limited with a very few who to take a calculated risk and manage that risk. Thank you.
I have a little experience to share with you.
Okay. Thank you.
I need to add one thing because to his question. Two things. One, I'm a parent, but most of the time I have educated myself here. But if you bring your parents from home and you tell them you work at the bank, and then if somebody also tell parents he is driving Uber, the understanding of these two parents, bank, the less paying job in America is what? It's bank. They don't pay unless you are the top elites. They don't pay. But if you come from Ethiopia and you tell you're in the bank, what will they tell you? Oh, in a better position. He works at the bank or he works in the office. He goes at 8 in the morning, come at 5. These are big with our parents. That's the thing we brought with us. So that's one thing. But for his question, to mitigate the fear, the failure, I forgot the name of a book I read on the two people, the Dell owners and also Google owners. They mitigate risk. Before they quit their job, when they establish Dell company and Google, they work 2 years adjacent. They are making sure that business is going okay, and then 50-50, they don't want to leave their job. But when they see things are going on the right track, then they start, okay, this is time, and devote my time to develop this product. So when we do something, we have to have a transition methodology that we have to put in place, how we can transit from one to the other. When I used to work for Dish Network for 15 years as a senior accountant. It was hard for me to leave because, like everybody, I say that going to office and coming back, I just think it was a prestige. You know, it was good. But the day I left, how I left is I was doing bookkeeping at home on my extra time. I have 5 people. A year later, I have 10 people. Then after, I have 15 people. When the number of people reach 30, I start calculating the hassle I am getting for working for that company and the amount of money I am earning. If it is closer to that one, why would I fight with a company that is taking more of my time? Then I say goodbye. So we have to make sure the way we transit, then we have to pay attention, we have to look. Risk is something we cannot avoid, but we have to minimize it. And then that is the way I want you to do the transition. So that's my experience also. Thank you.
Awesome. So we have 10 minutes remaining, so I'd like to open up to the crowd for any questions. I'd also like to preface, this is just a conversation. This is the first one. We want to have more conversations, right? This is a lot of information. I'm personally, taking a lot of mental notes. I'm not going to remember all this, so I'm going to call these guys and ask questions. So if you have any questions right now, feel free to come up here and ask. And I can just start with the question. Can anyone raise a hand? Who has a business in here today? I'll ask a second question. Are there any people in here who want to start a business that have not today? So I'll ask you specific people, what questions do you have?
Can you hear me? Okay. You mentioned LLN, so LLN. Do you mention LLN? So could you elaborate a little bit that LLN for us? LLN.
Is it LLC or LLN?
It's about the language limitations.
Cultural and linguistic limitations?
Yes.
Sure.
So could you,
Okay.
give us a little bit elaborate for us, for me?
Okay. So, as a first generation immigrants, we all are facing a linguistic and cultural limitation when we navigate the business in the U.S. For that matter, any sector in the U.S. Unlike the mainstream Americans, we always face a linguistic and cultural limitation to deal with the mainstream system. When a white American approaches a bank for a loan, and an immigrant approaches a bank for a loan, the immigrant faces double burden. We call it a double burden. The immigrant doesn't have a culture that is similar with the banker. The immigrant is limited with language. By the way, some of the immigrant entrepreneurs approach third parties by taking their kids to a bank, to a hospital, to schools, to other third parties. Why? Because the parent is limited with language. As a result, there are what we call community financial service organizations to address this limitation, because the mainstream knows that the immigrants are at a disadvantage as compared with the mainstream Americans, if I address your question.
I think we have another question in the crowd.
Thank you, guys. Can you hear me? Thank you so much for all beautiful information. My name is Daniel. I'm from Toronto, Canada. And I myself run a very successful business for the past 8 years. And when Abraha was talking about quitting a full-time job, I was in that situation, having a nice job, and so it takes a determination. I just want to ask you, I don't know who's going to answer this question, but a lot of our people, rush to pay their mortgage. And a lot of people are sitting in a lot of equities, the real estate. You can, what do you your idea of using your equity to buy another property or to finance a business? Because at the end of the day, equity, the bank is using that money. And I know in this, because the interest rate's really high right now, but what do you guys, your advice for people, have $300,000-$400,000 equity where they can use that money to finance or to buy a second property? So what's your set? It might help for our people. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Mr. Moderator, allow me to answer this question. Mr. Abraham gave me to answer this question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm in real estate profession. I own my own real estate, so it might be a question which might be good for me to answer. So in real estate, as you mentioned earlier, there are equities. The middle class and the lower class in the US, they have one hope. That hope is to buy a house and then to accumulate, their financial stakes in equities, including me. So we have to use, that financial strength which we bring through equities to our advantage. Some people, they get equity from their house and then they try to buy a rental property, which I think is good. The point is, when do you buy the second property? Is it favorable to a buyer to buy a second or third property? How does the market looks like? Right now, the market of houses, I don't know in Canada, I think also I was in Canada last year, I checked some property prices, they are also up. In the US, the same thing. Therefore, you have to be very careful, when you take your equity and then when you buy, a house. Is it a favorable condition for buyers? Is it a seller market? We have to identify these issues, But in every circumstances, in every market, there are opportunities. So I advise you to go, to take your equity and then buy houses, but you have to be very careful. We advise, as real estate professionals, people to buy fourplexes, threeplexes, or duplex. In the US, they give you an incentive when you buy fourplexes, for example. If you buy more than fourplex, it is called the commercial, but four or less, it is called, non-commercial. Therefore, when mortgage brokers, when they consider to give you a loan, they consider the rental income, even though you don't buy it. So it's advisable, to buy fourplex, triplex, and duplex. I can give you some example which I witnessed, this couple of months. She is a mortgage broker in Colorado. And then she bought a house, duplex, in Savannah, Georgia, at reasonable price. It needed some repair. She put the money. I think she spent around $250,000. Now she's trying to put on the market the end of this month or next month, for $600,000. So some mortgage brokers, real estate brokers, or some business people, they are trying to buy houses which they need, repair. They put the money, and then they sell, at reasonable price. There is, in some instances, there are some loans you can get, they call it SBDC actually in Colorado. This is a new one. And then, you get money, at higher interest rate, which you can pay it, within a year. But you get the money, you put about 10% or 20%. You get the money without any qualification or income, requirement. and then you buy a house or duplex, and then you can sell it, at reasonable price. Therefore, to make it short, I think it's good to take equity or use, SBDC loans. Mr. Sisay can help me, on loans if there is any further, information to give. But this SBDC loan is a good one, which I saw it. And then it's good, to buy. I recommend and I prefer, duplex, triplex, or fourplex. And then I think it's a good idea to take equity and buy. Thank you.
Awesome. So this concludes our panel. If there are any more questions that you have or you're interested to learn more, you can always reach out to any of these individuals. They're willing to give their contact information. If that's something you want to see on a more regular basis, I know that's something we're working on as far as TPN, just setting up monthly chats to just discuss business opportunities or things like taxes or anything else that comes with running a business. But other than that, I want to thank our esteemed panelists for joining us today and sharing their wisdom. This is just the start, so let's keep it going from there and build this community from the ground up. Thank you so much.
I was to say that.
Maybe I just can't stop, I want more.